Hello everybody, I'm Interface, and in today's video I'm going to be going over how to use Colossotrops effectively in the Loomian Legacy Battle Colosseum. Now this Loomian was at the top of some, controversy I guess, because, everybody thought it was broken because, oh no, it does lots of damage, it's broken. Yeah, that's what a wall breaker does, everybody. Fun fact, wall breakers break walls. And yeah, that's exactly what Colossotrops does here. With its wide variety of coverage, making it hard to swap into, its secret ability giving it large damage output with minimal setup, this boy outputs some massive damage. So how exactly can you utilize this damage effectively? Well, that's what we're going to be covering today. This is how to use Colossotrops. Now, before I get into the first set, let's quickly go over its base stats. With a 103 HP and 111 melee defense, that gives it a great amount of melee bulk, which this boy will need considering its 54 speed. That is pretty darn slow, so it's almost always going to be taking a hit before it can dish out any damage. And then pair these stats with a 124 melee attack, and well, we've got ourselves a solid melee offensive Loomian. 96 energy, that's just a nice energy pool to have. You hit some solid numbers without any investment, which means you need even less investment than most Loomians to get what you need. So yeah, 96 energy is always good. 55 range attack, 67 range defense, these are its weak points along with its speed. It's slow and weak to ranged moves, so we can already see where this is going later. Now, again, before I go into these sets, I need to let you know it's not only the TPs that let you know how to use a Loomian. Just because you know to max out its attack doesn't mean you know how to use it. Please stick around as I attempt to explain how this thing is used. Anyway, the first set I want to go over here is, it's probably most primary and basic set here. It's the Wall Breakers set. We're going to be using the Brawny Personality just to maximize our damage. The ability will be Vigorous, which is its secret ability. For those who are free to play and or cannot get their hands on a secret ability, free to play technically can, it's just, a lot harder. Check out the timestamp shown on the screen to see a more free to play friendly set. Anyway, for those who do have Vigorous or have access to Vigorous, we also want to run the Volcanic Ash. Now, Volcanic Ash will burn you, but its ability is great in the fact that once you are statused, you get a 50% attack increase. And this attack increase also ignores burn. So when you burn yourself, you take minimal damage every turn compared to like poison or with the other status item paralysis, giving you a half speed and a 25% paralysis every turn. This is just the most optimal way to crank up your attack. This is essentially like setting up what's a move that only gives you one attack? The Power Focus without the range attack. This ability just gives you an innate power focus, which is great. Now for the TPs, the 24 speed I want to address first. That's pretty much the minimum amount you want to be running on a Colossotrops, no matter what you're doing. This allows you to outspeed a 0-speed sluggish Obsidragon, just to let you get the jump on those. Those would likely be used on things like Very Clever or Very Robust. Please don't use Very Clever, it's not very good. Anyway, as for the energy will depend on your moveset. If you're running bulk up like you see on this set, you would want to run 36 energy because that gives you the energy for a bulk up and 4 Timber Thrashes. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. However, if you are not running bulk up and are running 4 attacks instead, you would want to have that energy up to 60, as shown on your screen here. The 60 energy lets you use 2 Timber Thrashes and 3 Earthquakes, just to try and maximize the amount of energy you can use before resting. Anyway, aside from that energy, the 24 speed is kind of something you can adjust. You could go from anywhere between 24 and 96 speed. 96 will let you get those Obsidiogons who are not running sluggish, so like Robust Clever or Brawny Robust, that kind of stuff, if they're also running 0 speed. So that would be your choice as to which one you want to run. But anyway, the remaining TPs, you'd want to prioritize your health first. The reason you want to prioritize your health is because Timber Thrash is a move that does 33% of the damage you inflict as recoil. So as you're taking recoil, as you're taking burn, you want as much HP as possible to cushion those blows. And then after that, any remaining TPs you have would go into melee defense. Now, as you may have noticed, the 96 speed set I just shown, which is currently on your screen, has 8 melee defense. The reason for that is because Colossotrops is weak to Icicle Traps, we always want those Loomians to have odd HP. Due to the fact that Icicle Traps does percent-based damage, we want that stuff to round down. If your HP is odd, the damage inflicted from Icicle Trap will always round down. So if you swap in twice, that's 50% of your HP, but it'll round down, which will give you, which will, instead of doing 102 damage, you would take 101 damage and be left with 102 left over. So, while it's not exactly as important on Colossotrops due to the Volcanic Ash also chipping away at it, it's just a general rule of thumb. If you're weak to Icicle Traps, always make your HP odd. But anyway, as for the moves, we've got Timber Thrash and Primal Slash. This will be your bread and butter on any set, regardless of what you're doing. It's your primary stab. They do lots of damage. If you're running Bulk Up, you're going to have to choose between Earthquake and Mega Chomp. Each do their own thing. Earthquake lets you hit things like Seer Knight. Mega Chomp lets you hit things like Defensive Plants. Anyways, the coverage is up to you. Earthquake, Mega Chomp, both fine options. So yeah, just pick what you want. I mean, it doesn't really matter. One, you're going to be losing coverage somewhere if you're running Bulk Up, but yeah, it's still up to you. However, now let's go over this whole Vigorous thing. Once you are burnt, you will 2-hit KO vast majority of Loomians that are just not, like walls, I should say, that are not purely dedicated to melee defense. So if that Obsidiogons like very clever, it's dropping to 2 after you're burnt. And if you're okay with just that amount of damage, you could just run 4 attacks. You don't need Bulk Up if you're fine with that kind of damage output. However, there are things that pop up that are more able to wall you at that point. But if you're fine with just dealing damage via coverage, this would be your go-to. Now, if you want, again, Bulk Up to inflict the maximum amount of damage against things like very robust Obsidian and whatnot, then obviously you would want Bulk Up. Bulk Up, once you're at +1, will OHKO Very Clever Stratosaur, which is common in higher level play, and it will 2-hit KO Very Robust Armor Obsidian with Primal Slash. So, yeah, it does lots of damage. People are not wrong when it says it when people say this does a lot of damage. Now, if you want to run this on Bane of Haste, your speed stat is actually very capable of it. You just want to run a Brawny Sluggish variant with as little speed as possible. And then, of course, you want to move your speed TPs into things like HP and or melee defense. Now, for those who are free to play, let's talk about Frail Armor. With Frail Armor, it's an ability that when you take a melee hit, you will lose a stage of melee defense, but gain a stage of speed. When we're running Frail Armor, we still want to run Brawny because big boy damage. You are losing a lot of damage because you're not running Vigorous, but you could somewhat function as some of a late game cleaner if you can manage to get this speed buff. Speed buff. When you are at +1 speed with 184 speed TPs, you will outspeed up to something like a Shachi or an Infernix who is running Nimble Max Speed. However, Jamie did talk about potentially buffing it. It's not confirmed, but there was talk about it potentially buffing Frail Armor to +2 speed instead of +1. If it were to get the +2 speed, this exact spread you see on your screen actually outspeeds Very Nimble Zulong at +1. You will go up to 204 speed, and Very Nimble Zulong has 202 speed, so that would greatly increase its ability to clean up in a late game situation. Now, with this set, you would 100% want Bulk Up because you're losing a lot of damage without Vigorous, and you need that damage. You very much so want/need that damage. Energy still the same, 36. I mean, you're running Bulk Up, so Bulk Up 4 Timber Thrashes. And then obviously the rest just goes into HP because recoil. So now that I've talked about that stuff, let's talk about some of the drawbacks here. Its typing Plant Ancient does have some nice resistances. 1, immunity to light. It's an ancient type immune to it. Quad resists electric, plant, and water, so that's pretty cool. However, that's not very cool when you also tag on a weakness to dark, bug, ice, metal, ancient, and toxic. All of those typings are very common in the meta, at least in higher level play. Ice isn't common in terms of like Loomians being used. However, Icicle Trap itself is very common. So when you're weak to so many common typings, it's very hard to get into the battle. You have very few things that are just like easy to come in on. Like Eliguana, you could pretty much freely come in on. Setimars, you could pretty much freely come in on. Luminami, that doesn't have Mega Chomp, is pretty free, and even with Mega Chomp, it's not that bad because you do have good melee bulk. And then a defensive Blowtalk, since they don't generally run Venom Chomp, and if you're already statused, then you can't get poisoned, then that would also be a good way to get in. So yeah, it's just a matter of reading the right moves to get this thing in. But enough of that. Let's talk about some team options for this. Hazard removal is key here because you are weak to Icicle Trap and you're already damaging yourself harshly through burn or recoil. So stuff like Krakaloa, Infernix, Stratosaur, anything that can remove hazards is a good pair with Colossotrops. And then something else you want to pair with it, since it is a wall breaker, you generally want to pair that with a late game cleaner that can capitalize on walls that are weakened or broken. So stuff like Protogon, Gabademic, Garlash, anything fast that hits hard is a good pair with Colossotrops. Another thing you could look for is Health Gift if you want to give your Colossotrops a second life after chipping itself down through burn or recoil. So something like Gabademic or Icicle, especially on Bane of Haste. Icicle is a good pair. Sets up Bane of Haste and can Health Gift into Colossotrops, so that's cool. And then anything with, pivoting around, Baffled, Ancient Roar, Flash and Flee. If you can pivot into it, that makes it a lot easier to get it in. So, yeah. And now let's look into some of the answers to this behemoth. If you are running Bulk Up, that means you are lacking coverage. And if you are lacking coverage, something's going to be able to take you on more effectively. If you don't have Earthquake, stuff like Seer Knight, Blowtox, and even Tank Diborg, we could see the rise of Tank Diborg, depending on who runs Earthquake and who runs Mega Chomp. And then we have plants like Defensive Chartiki that can answer Colossotrops that don't carry Mega Chomp. So if you're running Earthquake, Defensive Chartiki can come in. It's not the best answer, don't get me wrong, but it does threaten it with Muck Blast. Any variant of Chartiki, Muck Blast will two-shot a Colossotrops, so oof. And then if you don't want to run any of those, something like Tank Mutagon is an excellent blanket check to Colossotrops. Being able to take any one hit from it pretty much for free helps waste Colossotrops' energy, waste its health, which makes it a lot easier to deal with. And then, of course, if you're running 4 attacks, that means you're sacrificing your ability to set up the big boy damage. And so things like very robust Obsidragon, while not the best answer, can come in and blanket check it. Then you also have like Defensive Swolder, Ferroblast, Defensive Florant. Those things would be able to start checking you more effectively. And then of course, since it's so slow and having so many weaknesses and a very exploitable ranged attack or ranged defense stat, it's definitely weak to more offensive teams with stuff like Protogon, Gabademic, Zulong around. Again, that makes it really hard to get into play and keep it in play because it's so easy to force out. But yeah, that's pretty much it on how to use Colossotrops. It's a very massive damage dealer. However, it does have lots of drawbacks. So if you are able to deal with all the recoil it does to itself and are able to cover its weaknesses, then you could pretty much pat yourself on the back. You've covered your Colossotrops correctly. And yeah, you can successfully enjoy it in the Colosseum. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. It really helps out the channel. The more people that like the video, the more people that this video gets recommended to. And the more people that can learn how to use Loomians, that means the higher level the Colosseum gets, which makes it more fun. So yeah, very much appreciated if you do that. Also, if you're interested in more videos of this kind, so like potential how to use Deladrix in the future, make sure you're subscribed and have the notification bell turned on, so you get notified when that gets posted. So hopefully y'all enjoyed, and I'll see you in another video. See ya.